Great to be with you, Bobby Yazdani from Cota Capital. It's wonderful when we at TMS heard you at Livewire Live in 2023, and we thank Livewire for hosting us here today. The comment you left us with at that conference last year was that it was the best time to start a business, and it wasn't because all the conditions looked good, I suppose, but because the opportunities looked greatest. Is that still the case? Has anything changed since then?
So my reference point is United States. So I'm not really familiar with the environment here in Australia, but going back to US, I think the comment, those comments were back in October or September, October last year. And it was sort of as we've gone through a massive drawdown, massive restructuring of the tech sector, tons of layoff in the technology sector in the United States, which started really beginning of 22 and it continued through 23. These periods when there is contraction of the bigger players, there is better availability of human capital and talent. So if I were to start a business in the technology sector, the work that I do, I'm no longer 22 years old, but if I were to, in my 22, let's say I'm 30 years old, I've been a technologist, I've worked in a technology company, wanted to start a business. The work that I would do has to be frontier work. That's the requirement number one. I'm not interested to touch things that have been done before or addressed before. I'm looking in different areas of the technology and I want to find my own frontier that I'm going to go explore. But I also need to have a group of talented people who have deep insight into that area of the frontiering work to come with me. So availability of talent is a big part of the equation. You're looking for similar people who have insights or have viewpoints on different areas of the technology. And that had become very much available because the big tech was shrinking their R&D activities and focusing on their cash flow and their margins, and there was so much pressure on them to maintain that. So they shelved a lot of big projects. So the people who were doing frontiering work in those companies became available. So that's one part of the equation, is to have access to exceptional talent. The second part of it is the noise level went down. So the people who were insightful could stand out. So it's at any given point, you know, you look at from really 2013, 14 till end of 21, there were hundreds of people and hundreds of entrepreneurs looking for raising capital. And it was very hard to distinguish noise from substance. But then in the period of 22, 23, it was very different. So yeah, I think the conditions, there are three conditions I think is still present. We have better talent pool today than before. The risk capital, there are ample risk capital looking to generate alpha. They're not looking to be in the mainstream. They're looking for special cases to create alpha. So there's plenty of capital. And the third piece of the puzzle is this beginning of what I have referred to as the new super cycle around AI. Which is, it's a frontier, and there are multiple fronts within that frontier. And the people who are right in the beginning of it will get to learn faster than other people. So the faster you learn, the faster you fail, the faster you get to know what to do. So I think these super cycles happens every, I think in the tech, maybe 7 to 10 years. And we are going through one of them today.
And these cycles, I mean, I think you've also said there are shorter cycles that play all the time, and maybe those cycles have become shorter, but these super cycles, they don't come along so often. And they can be ridden for a long time.
Well, I give you kind of my history with the super cycles. So I left University of California, Berkeley when I was 22, young computer scientist. It was the beginning of the destruction of IBM. where IBM controlled the entire full stack. And then you had all these small companies showed up called Microsoft and Oracle and Cisco and many Intel, that there was the beginning of a cycle. And when you just think about this, this is in the early 1980s.
Yes.
These are tiny companies and nobody cared about them. And look at today, Microsoft, or look at Cisco or Intel,
Oracle.
they dominate. So every cycle that starts, there is, on the front end of the cycle, there are winners and losers. Yeah. The winners dominate for many, many years. Still Microsoft dominate. Still Intel dominate. Still Adobe dominate. They haven't gone anywhere.
No.
And then there are new entrants. So I've seen the beginning of the personal computing and what we call client-server architecture. Then I saw in the beginning of the internet, it was yet another cycle. But within internet, there was a sub-cycle called software as a service and cloud computing. AWS came from that era.
Yeah.
Amazon came from that era. Google came from that era. And the list goes on. Salesforce came from that era. And they're not done yet.
No.
They're going to keep going. So every one of these cycles of experience is about 7 to 10 years. There would be early many winners, but there would be super winners.
Yes.
And it has 40, 50 years leg.
That's
for
it.
each of those
Decades.
decades.
Yeah.
But every period you have new winners that shows up. So if you think about even Apple wasn't considered to be a winner in the 1990s.
No.
It was actually a loser.
Struggling. Yeah.
Struggling. They had maybe a robust Macintosh product line. They were just the beginning of the mobile phone. But really what put them on the map was iPhone. But it wasn't iPhone. It was iPhone and the App Store. That whole construct of the App Store is what really enabled Apple to service 5 billion people now, or 4 billion people today. So it's complex to detecting the super cycle. It's complex to understand within the super cycle what's false positive, what's not, where in the super cycle you need to go first, second, or third, depending on the period. So you have to really understand the technology element and the architecture. So in this super cycle, the first group of winners were semiconductors. We talked about NVIDIA earlier on, is because that's the core infrastructure of compute. So without that upgrade of the compute, you're not going to get other building blocks on top of that. It's like the mezzanine of the house has to be upgraded. Then the data centers have to get upgraded. Then you got the whole infrastructure to manage that asset has to get upgraded. And then there are all the tools that you need to build and develop new applications. So there is a stack that sits on top of each other that has to get upgraded through this cycle. I mean, I myself and a team of my team, we spend majority of our time trying to understand where is this architecture is going and positioning a portfolio that take advantage of it. But we are a technologist first, then we are financiers. We can't, in my business, you can't be a financier first and then be a technologist. It doesn't quite work.
And it's interesting, all of what you've just said when you reference your early career, and you mentioned pure maths at Berkeley, and then straight to Oracle. I'm really interested in what formative value that was for you and the network of people that were there at that time under Larry Ellison. It was clearly, a lot of Silicon Valley and the technology industry broadly has emerged from that, coterie of people that you met and worked with at that time.
Yeah. It's called technology broadly, but it's a frontier. That's how you should think about it. It's not a physical place. It's an abstract virtual place called technology frontier. And there are different people would go after this new frontier. So Larry and Oracle were the early, they were doing early frontiering work in this new architecture called databases and SQL or SQL-based databases, which was about centralization of the information and making it very easy to not only manage the information, but build automation around information. So I was a member of a group that were frontiering that work. So what happens in that type of a work, there are a couple of things. One, because you're first, you're learning first, and you're failing first. The faster you fail and the faster you learn, you're actually ahead of competition because you're learning faster than your competition. So there is a culture that comes with that kind of a mindset that the failure is actually get rewarded rather than get disciplined.
It's a learning process.
It's a learning process. So the faster you learn, the faster you can innovate, the faster you can get to a newer frontier.
Yes.
You're just pushing through. You're pushing through your learning. You're pushing through your understanding. You're pushing through what you can do with technology. I give you a very naive example. I mean, the idea that you have a browser that you can traverse the world. You can actually go anywhere in the world with a browser. I mean, that's an incredibly powerful idea.
Yeah.
It's an incredible powerful idea that you could have many different people with different languages and different cultures and different way of life. With a single browser, they can go anywhere. Technology has enabled all of that. The physical universe hasn't created that. The digital universe has created. That's a completely new frontier.
Yeah.
So the digital universe is a new frontier. There are many elements to it. And when Larry started the work, I was part of a group of people. All of those people went off building other businesses in the same frontier.
Yes.
Tom Siebel,
Benioff.
Mark Benioff, Craig Conway at PeopleSoft. Yeah. Hundreds of companies came out of that same group of people who were there first. Same thing happened with the first group of people who went to Google. Yeah. The same thing is happening with the first group of people who went to Facebook. When you think about AI, where did it come from? Originally, it came from academics, academic work in Cambridge, Berkeley, MIT, Stanford. But it got manifested really early days of it at Google. So there were frontiering work was being done with group of scientists and engineers and even business leaders in that frontier that now they have left and started many companies, including OpenAI.
Yeah.
So that's how it's a virtuous cycle. And it goes back to, we were talking about this construct, why these things inherent in certain societies and why it's not inherent.
Yes.
Why is entrepreneurship is inherent in certain societies and it's not in others? I mean, I think, for instance, Australia, in my opinion, is more entrepreneurial than many other places I've been through.
Yeah.
Okay. And US is, I would say, is the extreme case of the entrepreneurship.
Yeah. That word I've got to stay with because a lot of people in the VC game wouldn't put the term entrepreneur as their preferred term. I think that's the one that you see yourself as. Your post-Oracle career was being a business founder, owner. You took to public markets. And you pretty much, when you invest now, do see yourself in the shoes and understand the entrepreneur very, very well.
So my work and my team's work is to identify new frontier in technology. So I'm looking for new frontier. So how do I define a new frontier? I define that, we use this word called net new. We are looking for new frontiers that has not been explored before or identified before. And then you're looking for people or entrepreneurs that are these special people who have this insight to these new frontiers that others don't have. Or they see things that necessarily other people don't see. Now, where did that come from? In my case, it came from being a mathematician, an abstract person who had affinity towards abstractions and had a pleasure understanding abstract or taking complexity into abstract form. And then my experience at Oracle, and then seeing internet in 1993, and I told everybody it's going to change the world. Yeah. And I couldn't raise money. In 1993, people told me internet is just a toy. And here I was the lonely guy who was, I have plenty of rejection letter. I guarantee you rejection emails from people. When I built the business, took it public, and millions of people benefited from the work that I did. And then I took all of that know-how and knowledge, whether it was Oracle, working for incredible entrepreneur called Larry Ellison, an incredible group of other colleagues who had this kind of frontiering mindset, that culture, that energy that was there, and then created my own. And then I learned a lot and failed a lot doing my own. And now I'm taking all of that learning, sponsoring and supporting other entrepreneurs. And I have created a platform where I have capital and I have know-how that I would support the entrepreneurs. But I have very few bullets to use. We're not going to spread ourselves too thin because the work we do, it has to be precisely done with the right people in the right categories at the right time. And that is not an easy work. So mandate that we laid out, it defines a very specific lane. So, and that comes because of a certain philosophy as an investor now. So I believe that in order to yield alpha above market average, you need to be a specialist. So you have to live, and if you're a direct investor, you need to be a specialist. If you want to generate alpha, you have to have concentration. If you have concentration, you better know what you're doing because you have limited number of opportunities to be able to score, essentially. So we defined our mandate to be US only. I don't touch anything outside of US because I don't have to. There's plenty for me to do in the United States. I only touch enterprise technology. I don't touch any technology that serves the consumers. I don't want to go there. I'm focusing on enterprise technology where those technologies are frontier technologies that enable large businesses and the government to increase their productivity or solve problems that they couldn't solve before with technology. So I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for companies that serve businesses and the government, that are enterprise technology, that are doing frontiering work, because there are problems that has arrived that nobody has seen before, and we need technology to address it, or there are existing problems that technology haven't addressed before. So there are two types. Either is a new problem or an existing problem that never seen technology before. And we are looking for, actually majority of our entrepreneurs are very experienced people. These are people who come from the industry, they have insights, they have paid the price of working for larger businesses or been entrepreneurs themselves in the past, that have come to a new frontier, that they have an insight that they want to build a business around. No different than Larry, no different than Bill Gates, no different than Zuckerberg. And I can name many people like that. And my own self, when I started, the internet was not being used.
They look for the capital to some extent, but that knowledge of the entrepreneur's journey and the skill set that you and your team can bring must be the greater part, would it not?
Yeah, I mean, we are engineers, so we have disciplined our financing business in a very engineered fashion. The way we source talent to back, the way the thematics that we go after, because we think is strategic, or technologies that are strategic for businesses 5 years, 7 years out. So there are many pieces to this puzzle. Selection of the entrepreneur, the construction of the portfolio. How do you actually distribute risk within portfolio construction? How do you initiate the portfolio? How do you reserve for the portfolio? And then more and more importantly is how do we ensure that that investment becomes successful after writing a check and underwriting an investment. So we call it, this frontier requires not just capital, it needs experience, it needs knowledge capital, we call it. So capital without knowledge is no longer sufficient.
Yeah.
You need knowledge capital.
Yeah.
Even in your business, the clients come to you because you have a broad understanding of the market. You are knowledgeable. You're essentially, your knowledge is serving. It happens that you provide return to them, but his knowledge is leading you to help them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with us. In order for us to serve an entrepreneur, we have to have deep understanding of entrepreneurship and the process of building a great business and what they go through and all of the different challenges and steps that one goes through. We need to enable them having access to great customers, because early, in order for you to validate your insights, you need knowledgeable customers to validate your hypothesis.
Definitely.
That's a very important way for us to win deals.
Yeah.
Is that I'm not going there, I'm going to give you a check. I'm going to give you access to really important customers that can help you validate your hypothesis. That is saving you hundreds of millions of dollars and time to do that. And then we do a lot of work in what we call competitive intelligence, so that they know what are all the competing other technologies that are playing in their zip code. Those two pieces of content or knowledge is strategic to them. And whether we invest or not, we do the work and we give it to them, because you're helping another person with their business. And that becomes a reputational thing.
Yes. Bobby, you've got to touch on some of your, fantastic investment returns in the past and picking just huge winners. So names that everybody knows: Dropbox, Uber, Salesforce, Google. These are the stocks that have been part of your investment performance over a long period of time. You've obviously found the combination of the right people, the right frontier opportunity set there. But can you tell people a little bit about those sorts of investments?
When I remember the two co-founders of Dropbox came to my office. They were two young engineers from MIT. And they came to see me, and they said, we just dropped out of MIT. And they said to me, we are starting a new company called Dropbox. I said, what is it you're doing? He said, we've identified a big shift that we think that the technology is not there. It's a new category of problems that is going to only grow over the years to come. And I said, well, what is this problem you're talking about? And he said, we think, this is in 2008. They told me that they believe all of us do our work on our mobile phone. He said, you do not ever have to go to your laptop to do your work.
And the iPhone.
This is in 2008. This two young guy is 2 years old. And he said, I don't remember, Drew said, there is no way people can actually share large files in a mobile environment. It was that simple. So he had, so what I was looking for, what I always look for, is someone that can articulate a problem that nobody has addressed before, and they have an elegance and a simplicity to talk about what is the solution I'm going to bring to them.
Yeah.
That to me is that aha moment. And it's sort of like, it sparkles. Yes. You kind of know. So in the case of Uber, it was an experience on a corner. In 2009, a friend of mine said, let me show you this company, Uber. He pushed a button and a black car showed up to pick us up on his mobile phone in 2009. First, I thought these guys are tricking me. I said, they're making a fool out of me. Somebody called
Arranged it all.
arrange it out. So we went a few blocks over, we pushed down the button looking for another car.
And
So it was the elegance, the simplicity.
Solving a problem. Yeah.
It was solving a real problem and the elegance of solving it.
Yeah. And now we can't remember what it was like before, which is what great innovation does.
Yeah, you cannot, I mean, you Uber everywhere. You Google everything. Is it in your Dropbox? People just say that. It's like, give it.
Changes everything.
It changes everything, yeah.
Bobby, we've had a great chat. I'm going to have one more question for you, which is really, what are the opportunities that you're seeing now? I know that I've heard a little bit about Rhombus, for example, which is a current investment. And it sounds a fascinating thing because we're talking AI here and we're talking about the opportunities that it brings to all manner of businesses. But I know you've talked about things like that's a security, physical security style of business or health businesses. So things which, have everyday uses like we've just been talking about. But can you just give us an idea of what's exciting you at the moment?
There are a number of areas that myself, my team are doing tons of work on. And the other day, Sydney, we were with our colleagues and friends who were talking in a luncheon about what are the broad set of opportunities I see. So I give you the big picture. I think you cannot ignore cybersecurity as a core long-term thematic. So if you imagine you showed up in Sydney 150 years ago, you didn't realize buying land around Sydney Harbor is a good idea. So it's the same thing, right? So cybersecurity
is that obvious?
Is a very important, very strategic, long-term. Everybody who's an investor should have exposure to cybersecurity. That's given. Secondly is physical security. So we not only have cybersecurity threat, we also have physical security. You don't have those sort of issues here as much in this country. I've asked every Uber driver, what is the security like in Sydney? And it's a mixed bag, depending which neighborhood you go to.
Yes.
Then I also asked the question of, how do they secure the buildings? How do they secure the parkings? How do you secure the airport? You're not securing anything here yet. But the rest of the world is not quite like that. No. So physical security and cybersecurity, you have to have exposure. Yeah. It's the right long-term zip code, and it's a good thing for investors to finance great companies to secure us, both in cybersecurity and physical security.
Sorting out a problem.
A problem. A growing problem. A growing problem. Another area that it's fascinated me, and I have made a number of investments have worked for me, is the continuation that the world and many industries, they haven't quite created what I call their digital twins. They're still in the physical world. This building that you and I are in right now doesn't have a digital representation of itself. Mm-hmm. When you have a digital representation of a physical world, you'll be able to manipulate that, understand it better, manage it better, and get yield on it. Whether yield could come from energy saving, security of that physical asset, or managing the assets within it, or the flow of the people, or many, many other reasons. If it's in manufacturing, it's about output, or lowering the operating cost, or saving energy, and the list goes on. So digital twins, or the technologies that mirrors the physical world into the digital world, are very important areas. Yeah. We talked about AI.
Yes.
I tell you, there are many areas in AI I don't invest. Just like I couldn't tell you, at the conference we were talking about NVIDIA, I couldn't tell you whether the valuation is high or low, but I can tell you NVIDIA is an important strategic company. I can tell you AI is important and strategic, and there are many layers to AI. So you need to know where you and how you want to invest in AI and which areas. AI would be very similar to what happened to cloud computing, where people, today, you don't install software in your office anymore, right? You're on a browser, you reach to a service, and you get the service, software as a service through your browser. AI would be augmenting you in everything you do. So you wouldn't even know it's there.
It's in the background.
You just experience it. Your sales team in the future, your support team, they never have to go into another system.
Yeah.
There would be agent who would support both the sales team and the customer at the same time. So AI would be very broad. It would be invisible to you. It's just there.
Just part
it would
of
be embedded, part of everything. Every day of your life, every part of your experience as a professional, or in your your personal life, AI would be embedded. AI would be completely embedded, and it's broad. As far as the industry is concerned, it's going to be the next frontier for increased productivity. So the companies who do not figure out, just like they couldn't figure out how to move to the cloud, if they don't move to adoption of the AI, they're going to fall behind.
Yes. And every business can win if they wish to involve themselves early enough.
It's going to take time. I mean, AWS was not obvious in 2002 when internet arrived. AWS became mainstream in 2008. So there was a period that it took from that introduction to going to mainstream and people really understanding what is the economic value of using a cloud. Because ultimately we do things to benefit us. If it doesn't benefit us, we're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the businesses, it has to give them economic value or some kind of a competitive advantage to win.
Yes.
To do it. The same thing will happen with AI. It's coming.
It's coming. It definitely is. And we know that you're on top of it, in front of it. It's been great today, Bobby, to spend time with you to chat. It's been great to get inside.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And we look forward to catching up in California in October.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Bobby.
you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
All right, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks.